What's up, guys? Welcome back to Libertalia Game Supply. Today we are going to rank every card in the Bujin archetype within my tier list here. So we have S tier all the way down to trash tier. It ended at D tier initially, but when I was reading through some of these cards, I realized that a trash tier was definitely going to be necessary because some of these cards just suck. Which, when you have 37 unique archetype-specific cards, is going to be the case. You can't have 37 good cards, so the deck would just be overpowered. So we have like 7 good cards and 30 not good cards. If I've forgotten what any of these things do, I got the Pokedex handy right here. We'll look it up really quick. There are going to be some that I just don't remember ever playing because on initial read they just weren't good to begin with. But we'll kick it off right away with the OG himself, Bujin Yamato. This thing will consider historical relevance as well. I just don't know how much this is going to hold up. Yamato has a search effect, so in the end phase you can add a Bujin card from your deck to your hand, and then you have to discard a card. Doesn't do anything else outside of that. 1800 attack is decent on a level 4 monster, but really in this current day, you probably wouldn't play it at all unless you have sentimental ties to it like myself. I could not call it B tier for that reason. I would call it C tier, and really if I was being 100% honest with myself, I'd probably put it in D tier because it's just not all that good. Torifun here, this is going to set like the top end of our spectrum, so we'll throw it in S tier for now and I'll explain why. Basically how I will assess if a card is S tier, it's going to be somewhat confined to just within the archetype, so like the best cards in the archetype are going to probably be S tier, whether or not it is that way outside, like within the meta. So it doesn't necessarily mean like game-breaking card. However, if you were to take the effect of a card that I think is S tier and put it on any monster that is currently in a high level meta deck, and that effect is also broken, we'll consider that S tier just because of how good it is, and I think this is one of them. So it's a rescue cat essentially. After it's summoned, you contribute it to summon 2 monsters with different names from the deck. One's a Bujin Beast Warrior, one is a Bujingi, and that is how the effect resolves. But if you were to put that as like a just general like archetype specific, like you can summon 2 monsters with the same level with different names from your deck, this thing's busted. In this deck it's busted, it's your main combo starter, so that's how we're going to define that S tier. Bujingi Peacock, this thing sucks. It doesn't have a bad effect, it's got a bad restriction. So you can discard it in main phase 2 to search any Bujin monster and add it to your hand, but you can only use the effect if the effects of all other cards used in that turn were only Bujin cards. So no Fire Formation Tenki, no like Pot of Duality back in the day when this thing could have seen play. No anything. You don't get anything other than the Bujin cards, and especially when this thing released, there are not enough Bujin effects to be like a good powerful deck on its own, so you need the outside support. It's got a good effect, which would be D tier because you can't really use it, but you kind of can use it. The restriction, I think, makes it wholly unusable. There is no deck you could build that only will ever use Bujin-based effects that allow this to be relevant, so we're going to have to call that trash. It literally, you cannot find a way to play it and not have it be just a drain on your deck. Bujin Carnation, this used to see play. I suppose you can still see play now. We'll leave it down here for a second. What it does is if you control no monsters, your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon a banished Bujin and a Bujin in your graveyard to your field, and then if you exceed summon with them, I think you can only make Beast Warriors, or maybe you can only make Bujin monsters. I'm pretty sure it's just Beast Warriors, because you can make like Diamond Direwolf back in the day, I believe. Or maybe, I don't know. I don't recall exactly. I haven't used it in a while. But this thing, I just think it's not as good anymore because if you're in a position where your opponent has monsters and you have none, and all you're getting is 2 materials to make a Xyz monster, you lost that game already. It's searchable because of Mikazuchi, technically, but there's just, we'll get to Mikazuchi later. It's a whole different issue with that. I want to call it C tier because I think it's about as usable as Yamato. It was good at a time, it has some historical relevance. It's just not really the same anymore. It's been power crept for sure. Bujingi Hair, this is probably one of your best Bujingi cards in the deck, if not the best. I would say it's on par or tied with Sinew down here. That being the case, I think the best I can rank any of the Bujingis is going to be B tier, just because as a monster that you draw in your hand, they kind of aren't good. They have some okay attack stats, like Hair has 1700 attack, and they're all level 4s, so they're all usable as material, but they have no effects other than their graveyard effects, except for the ones, I think all the birds you discard out of your hand to use. and I don't believe any of the other ones do anything outside of the graveyard, but I guess we'll figure that out as we go along here. That being the case, it's a great like addition to the deck, but if you were to put this on something else, which I think does exist, it's always like a secondary effect. Like, this monster does something. Also, if it's in the graveyard and your, Thunder Dragon would be destroyed this turn, you can banish the whatever I think it's the fusion spell can banish itself to protect it or something. So it's always like a secondary effect, and with the Bujingis, it's the only effect they have, and so I think B tier is all you're ever going to get. Mikazuchi. I don't think that I could quite call it B tier because I just don't think that it does enough. I would say it's better than Yamato, so we'll put it up there. Honestly, I think Carnation is probably better than Yamato as well. If a Bujin Beast Warrior you control is destroyed, it can special summon itself from the hand. If it's on the field and you discard a Bujin monster to the graveyard, during the end phase it can search a Bujin spell or trap. I think that search is kind of cool. I just don't think the pool of searchable cards is all that cool. In the whole archetype, I would say there are 2 spells and traps that you could ever actually justify playing. One of them being Bujin Carnation, which, as I have described, is probably not the best. The other being the sword, Bujin Regalia, the sword, I don't know, right there. And I like that one a hell of a lot better. The problem is it's still a trap card, so you're going to search it in your end phase. You're not going to get to set it until after your opponent had your turn and you have your next turn, and then you can't activate it until the turn after that. So even that is just unbelievably slow, especially in the current game. So high C tier it is. Bujingi Swallow, I don't remember this at all, so we'll look it up quick. Alright, so during main phase 1, you can discard this card from your hand, target a Bujin Beast Warrior you control. That monster can attack twice this turn. Not bad, except no other Bujin monsters, or no other monsters can attack that turn other than that one monster. It's just a worse Susanoo. If you want the multiple attacks, you're just going to summon the Susanoo. I suppose the situation where you may end up needing that effect is if you only have one Bujin monster on the field and you want to get 2 attacks off with, your 1800 attack Yamato to win the game. That situation pretty much never arises. For that reason, we'll call it D tier. It's not unusable like this piece of garbage, but it is. It's just not very good. There are better cards within the archetype itself that do what it does, just better. So D tier is good. Harume, this is an interesting one. We'll call it B tier. The reason I would call it B tier is all of the Bujin Beast Warriors have the specification that you can only control one at a time. This one special summons itself from the hand by banishing a card from the graveyard. That I think is very good. Having multiples in a deck means you're probably going to have situations where you have 2 of them and you can't summon 2 of them. If you open this card turn 1, it's not good because you haven't had a chance to get anything in your graveyard to be able to banish to summon it. So within the deck, it takes a hit just based on the speed or lack thereof with the way the deck can set itself up. So B tier I think is a solid ranking there. For our first A tier card, we got Bujin Haruko. So this is your Pendulum. It's your rank up. Banish it from the Pendulum Zone, and it can rank up any Bujin Exceed monsters you control into any other Bujin Exceed monster in your extra deck. Really good combo piece. Very necessary in the deck, I would say. The only thing making it not S tier is it's kind of like it's not bad to draw, but if it's the only Beast Warrior you draw on turn 1, it's just not good anymore. But outside of that, you can build a deck in a way that gets around that, and I think it's a good card. Alright, this is Bujin Regalia the Jewel. It is the Tsukuyomi trap card. I don't remember what it does. Okay, so it's not as bad as I was expecting it to be. Target a rank 4 Xyz monster you control. Equip this card to that target. It gains 300 attack for each Xyz material attached to it. Once per turn, you can attach 1 Bujin monster from your hand to the equipped monster as an Xyz material. I would still say this is not a very good card. The deck does pretty well with attack manipulation on its own without needing this thing. There's the Crane, the Sinew, plus the Tenkis that you're probably going to end up playing. I would not call this trash. I think you could find a way to play it. I just don't think it would be a very good or a very winning deck. So we can call that D tier. Maybe I would put it above the Swallow. I'd probably leave the Swallow above it. The attack boost is kind of cool, I guess. Being able to attach new materials is also kind of cool, but usually the effects on the Bujin monsters, the Xyz monsters at least, are going to be such that having 4 attempts at using that effect is not really going to change your ability to win the game versus just playing an extra copy of that card if you really want its effect that many times. So I'm happy with that. The Sword. So this one I like. I don't want to be too biased and call this a B tier card, maybe a low B tier, high C tier. I think we'll call it high C tier just because of the issues outlined with Mikazuchi. What it does is when you activate it, you can either take one of your Bujins from your graveyard and add it back to your hand, so it can recycle something like a Crane or maybe one of your Torifuns or something that didn't get banished yet. Or if there's a banished Bujin monster, you can move it back into the graveyard, so it can recycle any of your Bujingis that banish themselves for effects. So Hare, Turtle, Quillen, Sinew, I'm forgetting some Centipede, I can't remember the rest. Probably like Fox and Warg or whatever else. So it's a recycle card. I think it's pretty good as the lone really good search target in the deck that even if you draw it is still not bad. It's like a recovery card. I would call this high C tier, maybe low B tier. We'll call it high C tier to not disrespect our B tier Bujingis. We have Bujin Unity, and I don't remember what it does. I think this is the one that was a super rare in like one of those old box. It looked like a like the Pokemon Elite Trainer boxes. I think they had them for like Judgment of the Light and Legacy of the Valiant or something. Comment if you know what I'm talking about. I was wrong. This wasn't the promo one. I think it was the Buja incident, which we'll get to in a few cards here. This thing is strange. If you control no other cards, shuffle all Beast Warrior type Bujin monsters from your graveyard into your deck, minimum 1. And discard all cards in your hand, minimum 1. Then you can add 3 Beast Warrior type Bujin monsters with different names from your deck to your hand. You can only activate 1 per turn. I suppose I could see how this would be sort of useful. It's like a reset button, but only for your cards, so you lose your whole hand. Everything in your graveyard that is a Bujin Beast Warrior goes back, and then you get to pick 3 and put them in your hand as long as they got different names. I could see this being similar to a Bujin Carnation with a little bit of a harder stipulation to hit, where it immediately can give you an attempt at being back in the game. So say you added back to your hand Torifun, Arasuda, and Harume, we'll say. That hand, as long as you still have a monster in the graveyard to banish for Harume, or you still have material in your deck to special summon off a Torifun, that hand does some damage. I think the problem with this card is going to be the you lose a lot. You lose your whole hand. You lose your graveyard monsters. I don't know. I was thinking D tier, but I think it's actually a C tier, and I think I might put it above. I can't disrespect Yamato like that. I think it's a C tier card. I think you could find a way to play this thing and have it not suck. Maybe I'll have to try it out, but I still think that initial reactions, nobody playing it, means something. Hashima, we'll throw that in A tier right away. This thing is great. It's been good since it came out. It's a pretty new card, but it's even better now with that Galaxy Photon Dragon being able to search your Photon Sanctuary, giving you tokens to summon this thing, and then using whatever's left in your hand or graveyard to special summon and combo like crazy. I also think it's seeing a lot of play in the current game outside of Bujins at this moment. I'm basing that off of its recent price spike from like $4 to like $20 to $30 for some reason. I think it's down to like 15 now, but still. Card is super good. It also has that built-in back row destruction, which is pretty relevant in this deck because there isn't a lot of back row destruction outside of this and Centipede. Maybe on some of the more obscure cards, but they probably just aren't very good, so I just don't remember them. I would even probably call this A tier above Haruko. It's just a really good card in the deck at this moment. Well, we got Bujingi Pavo, another one that I don't remember. I know it's a super rare. I think it was out of Legacy of the Valiant. I think it had an effect that might have been kind of relevant, but we'll check here quick. So it does have an okay effect. So when a Bujin Beast Warrior you control is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can discard it from your hand and special summon a Bujin from your deck. So I guess it's kind of good. I think this problem, or the problem with this card, is going to be similar to the problem with any of these other cards that can like replace monsters with other of the own in-archetype monsters. They don't really do anything on summon. So it's good that it would like replace a body that was gone. So maybe you now have the body when you get passed back the turn, and so you have Xyz material. But outside of that, you never really generate advantage off of a special summon like this in this kind of a deck. So I think Bujin Fidel does the same thing, this thing down here, or a similar thing, where you're going to get that special summon. It's going to do nothing unless you're getting like this and Arasuda have effects that, like if you discard a Bujin that turn, you get an effect off of them, but I just don't see how this could be super useful. I would say it's probably better than both of these, but it's not good enough to be on par with some of this stuff in C tier. So D tier it is. I think this one is called Bujin Incident. I want to say this one is also like sneaky useful, but it's too specific. I'm kind of right. It's an okay card. So target a Bujin Exceeds monster you control and banish it, and if you do, return all monsters on the field to the hand until your second end phase after activation. Neither player can summon monsters nor take damage, but can normal set. During your second end phase after activation, target one Bujin monster in your graveyard, special summon the monster banished by this effect, and if you do, attach that target to it as an Exceeds material. So, an interesting effect, but it feels like it's a relic of the previous Bujin playstyle where it's more control-based, so you would banish like a Susanoo, return everything, and then hopefully have like a Vanity's Emptiness, Kaiser Coliseum, you know, whatever floodgate, like say no card, flipped up, and now your opponent, if they had comboed off before, you reset that and then shut down all the ways they can summon stuff, and your normal summons are still good at that time, because if you had a Yamato, you could sit on Yamato, Coliseum, and then search a Crane during every end phase, and you're pretty much winning for those couple of turns. So it is an interesting effect. I just think that, you know, a good deck is going to still find a way around this. You also don't get to special summon, so you are stuck with normal summons, and unless you're going to lean towards playing Yamato Mikazuchi, there aren't super good normal summons in the deck. And even those two aren't good normal summons, don't get me wrong, but they're the best ones you got, I would say. That's going to have to be... That's going to be D tier. Oh man, it might be bottom of D tier just now that I've talked myself through it all. I think I've talked myself out of giving it a higher rank. D tier, good. This is the super rare promo thing from the Elite Trainer boxes that I was talking about earlier, and I can't remember what it's called. Bujin Intervention. Yeah, this is the one from the Legacy of the Valiant box thing. Super rare. It's not that good. Activate it, you target a Bujin monster you control, and then when it battles a monster with an attack different than its original attack, if your monster's original attack is lower than their monster's original attack, it banishes that monster and then all monsters with the same name from your opponent's deck. I don't know if that made any sense at all the way I described it. I think the way that it would work is, you know, you summon, say, the Bastion, the Arasuda, 1600 attack, you normal summon it. You attack something that had 1700 attack but is currently boosted to 1800. During the damage step, you would crane, so your 1600 becomes 32. You now have a lower original attack than their original attack, and their original attack is not the same as its current attack. So that thing would get banished as well as everything else. That's super convoluted, super situational. That's what I was talking about at the beginning of the video, and this thing sucks. I feel like we may have another trash tier card. It's definitely not worse than this. I'm angry at the Peacock because it could have been decent, and it's just garbage. Trash. It's trash. There it is. Quillen, this is an easy B tier. I would say pretty much all of the Bujingis are going to be B tier. The ones that I play, at least. And the ones that I don't play are probably going to be D or trash tier. I don't know that there's any, like, middling Bujingi cards, but I guess we'll find out. Quillen, banish it from the graveyard, pop a face of card. Super simple, super relevant. All the Bujingis, I guess, also benefit from kind of being searchable off of, like... well, Foolish Burial or Susanoo can either add to hand or send to graveyard and stuff like that, so it's pretty easy to get them in the graveyard. B tier, easy. Crane! Oh, I'm wrong. I think Crane might be, maybe low B tier, because it is still a good card. I just think the graveyard effects are so much better nowadays, but in the past it was by far the best Bujingi, I would say. Easy 3 of. I think we're going to have to call it low B tier, if not high C tier, but I think we'll leave it in B tier because I still think it's pretty playable. Like, you could play multiple of this, and I still wouldn't really think that it's a bad decision. I just think there are better ones. So discard this card during damage calculation. Your Bujin Beast Warrior monster's attack doubles the original attack, so it makes a Susanoo 4800 attack. That was kind of like the thing originally. You would summon the Susanoo that could attack everything. Hopefully the 2400 original attack gets over most of it, and then that last monster you crane over, and then boom, big damage. It was either that or Honest, because if you used Honest over the big monster and then attacked everything else, you pretty much just won the game, because Honest's attack doesn't, the attack doesn't go back down after Honest, but for Crane it does. So low B tier, high C tier. I'm going to leave it in B tier out of respect for my my heritage here. Mahitatsu, this is an easy A tier, and I would probably even call it the highest A tier. This is an easy 3 of, I think, for sure. It's an extender, it's a graveyard setupper, and it's a recursion card out of the graveyard, like recycle card out of the graveyard, and it's all in one card. So discard a card, a Bujin card from your hand to special summon it. When it's on the field, you can banish a Bujin from your graveyard to Foolish Burial one from your deck, or you can send one from your hand to the graveyard to add one back to your hand. So it does so much. It does everything that this deck needed when it came out, and it's all like fairly cheap in terms of like cost that you put into summoning it or using its effect. Great card, amazing card. This is the way Legacy support should be done. A tier for sure. The only thing making it not S tier is its stats are crap. It's got 0 attack, 1800 defense. You can never, like, if you open this and you don't have other combo pieces, you're gonna lose because there's not enough that you can do with this without something else that make it good. Ophidian, I think this is either an original support card, if not on the second wave with Mikazuchi, and I do not recall what it does. I'm right, it was from Judgment of the Light, so it's an original card. You can discard it, target a Bujin, Beast Warrior you control. This turn it can attack directly. This feels old. This feels like an old card. It's not a very good effect. That being its only effect, I think, is what makes it not good in my eyes. It just doesn't do enough, like, I think you understand what I'm trying to say. We'll call it D tier. The direct attack feels like it's kind of on par with the double attack, but maybe a little bit worse, so we'll throw it down there right next to Swallow. Tsukiyomi, I would say this is probably the worst Xyz monster in the deck compared to all the other ones and what they can do for you. Outside of the deck, it's probably one of the best ones, which is interesting. It saw some meta play with ABC because of its draw effect, so you can discard your hand to draw 2 cards. Usually you would just try to play your hand down to 1 card that you don't really need, use the effect to recycle, and then now you would rank it up with the Haruko or overlay it into like F-Zero or something. I don't know if I would call this C tier or B tier. I don't think it's that bad of a card. Its attack stats are crap. It's like 1800 attack, 2300 defense. So not very good for a rank 4 monster. Do I call it a high B tier? I don't know that I do, because I think the Bujingis are better all around, more useful, maybe better than Crane. We'll call it there. That sounds good. Centipede, that's also going to be B tier. We'll put it above Crane behind Tsukiyomi. Banished to pop a spell or trap. It's just searchable in archetype, back row removal. Pretty good, pretty relevant. The Raven. I just looked this up not too long ago and I've already forgot. It does something with like destroying an opponent's monster after it destroys your monster. Let's double check. Yeah, so when your Bujin monster is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can discard this card, and the monster that destroyed it would then be destroyed by battle also. Alright, not by battle, be destroyed by the Raven's card effect. So, honestly, this one's a shame, because I love the artwork on this. I just think that bird looks really cool. But that effect sucks. It's a -1 because you're losing the card on the field and the card in your hand to pop there, whatever. Yeah, I just don't see a way that you would make this thing any type of good, honestly. I don't know that it's trash because it is kind of usable. It might be trash. We'll say super low D tier, but maybe we'll come back to that one. Bujingi Fox, another one that I have never once used and we'll have to look up here. Oh yeah, this thing sucks. This might be trash. We might be able to easily call it that. During either player's turn, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then send 1 Bujin monster from your hand to the graveyard. You take no damage for the rest of this turn. The no damage thing sucks unless you're about to lose. I don't care if I take damage as long as I don't lose the game. That's kind of how the game is in general outside of Bujins. Life points are unimportant until you're on your last one after all. You have to banish it out of your graveyard, so you lose that resource. I suppose it could trigger your Arasuda, but so many other things in the deck do that better. And then you also have to discard one from your hand, so I guess it can replace itself with a Bujingi in your hand that you want in the graveyard, which is super situational, but that sucks. Like, that's a bad effect just all around. It just is nothing but neg. You get no real good value out of it. That's trash. We'll throw it down here. No, Peacock, you still suck. You're going down at the bottom. Sinew, easy B tier. Probably put her up here with Hair. Just below Hair, we'll call it, because Hair is older and gotta respect that. So Sinew is pretty much an Honest or a Crane, like it's somewhere between the two. It banishes itself out of the graveyard during damage calculation. So your Bujin Beast Warrior is battling their monster. You gain attack equal to their monster's attack, and then the damage is cut in half. Super awesome card. It's a searchable Crane. off of the effects that send to the graveyard, which is more what the deck is geared to do versus add to the hand. So it's just kind of better than Crane, I would say, based on it being so many places above Crane. But awesome card, would absolutely play this in every Bujin deck. Alright, Bujin Fidel, this thing is definitely going to go here, and I'll explain it here. So you can destroy, or send to the graveyard rather, I don't think it's destroy. Send to the graveyard one of your Bujin monsters on the field, and then special summon a different Bujin monster from your graveyard, and that's what it does. So it's similar to, what was the other one I was talking about before? I think it was the Pavo. It can replace a body that's on board with a body that's in the graveyard, but those effects don't do anything. Like, there's nothing you get, unless you're replacing like a Bujingi on the field with a Bujin Beast Warrior in the graveyard, so you can get that little like spot swap. Now you have an effect in the graveyard you can use and an effect on the field that you can hopefully use, but unless you're using it on your turn, it's probably getting removed anyway. I just don't think it's very good. It's also much slower than Pavo. Pavo's like a hand trap essentially, and this is a trap card. We'll leave it down here. I'm already forgetting what these cards do at the bottom, so I can't really rank them within themselves, so we'll leave it at the bottom, whatever. Bujin Regalia the Mirror. Oh, another one that I don't recall at all. It's the shield that Mikazuchi uses, I know that. Alright, so it's okay. It's nothing I would probably ever use. At the start of your main phase 1, if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, and you control a Beast Warrior type Bujin monster, until the end of your opponent's next turn, spell and trap cards and their effects cannot be activated. I believe that means both of you, so now you get no spell or traps effects until your opponent's next turn. Which means you cannot come back from the serious board disadvantage that you're already under, being able to meet the requirements to activate this thing. It's very much so an old Bujin card. It's based on that control variant of a deck that we don't really play anymore. I would call that D tier for sure. Maybe we'll put it above these because it could be playable. We'll put it above... We'll put it up here, actually. I think that it's something that could have been played. It wasn't played. Let me be clear. I understand it was not played, but I could have seen how you would justify playing it way back in the day when the deck was more control. Bujingi Ibis, another one I don't remember. Man, we're getting into the weirdest ones here. It's kind of on par with the Swallow and the Ophidian. You can discard it from your hand, target a Bujin you control. If it attacks a defense position monster, it does piercing damage. There's nothing to say about that. It's the same as these other 3 cards here. It's just attack manipulation or attack step manipulation, damage step manipulation that just isn't useful. Like, it's just not that good. Arasuda, I do know this one, and I think it's up here. I think it's above... I don't know. Maybe it's low A tier. So, when a monster is banished, when a Bujin monster is banished, it can special summon itself from the hand. That's pretty good. It's not once per turn, so if you have multiple, you can resolve it multiple times, which I have been able to do so. It can be triggered by many things in the deck, so it's pretty good in that way. I think we will call it A tier. I play it at 3 because of that extend. It's an extender, and it's essentially free because you're banishing anyway for a lot of these effects. You can force it if you need to, like you can always just use a hair on nothing, essentially, if you need that summon. I would call it A tier. Bujingi Crow, oh man, you know what, we're just going to move the Crow, the Boar, and the Warg all next to each other. I'm going to look them all up right now. We're going to run through them all really quick. I got a feeling none of them are above D tier. The Crow is kind of like a reversed Honest. If your opponent attacks your Bujin Beast Warrior, you can discard it, negate the attack, and then they take damage equal half of the attacking monster's attack. Not that it's on par with the rest of these guys here. I would say maybe it's a little bit better because it's... we'll put it above that thing too. We might even put it above that thing. High D tier because it does do something. It just doesn't do anything super useful. This thing I think is meant to go with the Ibis, so maybe we'll put it right next to the Ibis because it also sucks. You can banish it while you control a Bujin Beast Warrior to make one of your opponent's monsters change the defense mode and then turn its defense to 0, and then you would Ibis to attack it and it does piercing. And then if you did, you know, like this, you could attack, do piercing, and then attack again and do a ton of damage. But that's, I mean, that's bad. That's 3 bad cards you'd have to use in a row just to get any sort of good value out of it, so we'll leave it down there. This thing is unique, and I'm also now realizing that I don't believe I have Bujingi Wolf in here, which is like the counterpart of Warg, so I'll tell you where that goes after I put the Warg in here. So while Warg is in face-up defense position on your side of the field, Bujin monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects, so it protects from, like, Dark Hole, I suppose. So, I mean, it's okay. I think you could have probably found a way to play this before there was a Mikazuchi or any of this other stuff, because I believe this is from Legacy of the Valiant. If it's not, then this thing is definitely lower. But this is a D tier card. I wouldn't say it's better than any of these. Maybe it's better than Boar. We'll put it there. And then for the Wolf, which is his counterpart, does kind of the same thing. Other Beast, Beast Warrior, and Winged Beast type monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. So if you have them both on the field, your monsters can't be destroyed. But they can be banished, they can be bounced, they can be whatever. Wolf would be in the D tier also. We'd put it next to the... I would probably put it ahead of the Warg, but below the Ibis, because I would say that effect is probably better than Warg, but not like by the smallest amount. So imagine that the Wolf goes right here. I apologize for missing that one, but can you blame me? This one here is Bujin Candescence. This thing does a lot, but it's also it's a newer card. It came out in Lightning Overdrive, but it's so slow it feels like it would have been a good card if it came out in like Legacy of the Valiant, and it just isn't anymore. Let me reconfirm its effect. Beast Warrior Bujin monsters you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects except during the battle phase. Once per turn, you can send one Bujin monster from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard, then target one face-up card your opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of this turn. During your end phase, you can send this face-up card from the field to the graveyard, then target one Bujin monster in your graveyard, special summon it. So all those effects are pretty good. They could be useful on their own. The fact that it's so slow is what makes it not so good. I think we could call this a C tier and probably put it just above the Unity, but I just wouldn't play it. And the protection effect's kind of cool, but you have hair that can protect also. You have, Kagutsuchi, which we'll talk about next, that can protect itself and other things. It's just not good enough. Kagutsuchi, this is one of my favorites. I would call this A tier, and I would probably put it right there. Yeah, I'm going to put it there because it's an old school one and I love it, but I could see ranking it at low A tier. So when it's summoned, it mills 5. It gains 100 attack for every Bujin card milled that way. Also, it has 2 materials on it unless you summon it in some weird-ass way that I'm not thinking about. And then if a Bujin Beast Warrior you control would be destroyed, that could be itself or any other one on your field, you can detach a material to prevent it from being destroyed, and it's not once per turn, so you could prevent it from being destroyed twice, or any 2 monsters can be prevented from being destroyed in a single turn. So that's what I was talking about with this. You have protection effects that exist already. It's usually your bigger Xyz summon monster within the archetype. Like, it'll usually be 27 to 3,000 attack, which puts it at or just above Amaterasu, that one down there. I could see it being low, maybe even high B tier, just because it doesn't really do much in terms of like the combo aspect of the deck, but I just love the card so much. I think the artwork's cool. It looks great as an ultimate rare, so A tier is where it is. If you don't like it, make your own tier list. Susanoo, S tier, high S tier. We're putting it above Torifun because this is the man himself. Susan, detach material, search a Bujin card from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. The quintessential Bujin card. Because the effects are split between banish effects and discard effects, you get to choose one based on the situation you're in. It also has that effect to attack everything on the field once each. Awesome, awesome card. The perfect Bujin extra deck monster. Prove me wrong, Konami. Make me a new one and make it better. I dare ya. S tier, high S tier, #1 Bujin card ever made. Fight me. Amaterasu, we would call this a high A tier also, and I'd probably put it... we'll put it below a Hashima because of the... No, we'll put it above a Hashima. We'll put it above because it's higher. It's a similar level of combo piece necessity. They do similar things, and this thing can special summon back a banished Bujin monster on your turn or add it back to your hand on your opponent's turn, so it can recycle like your Torifuns or whatever your Bujingis that you could summon back and put back in the graveyard through special summoning. So it's similar to the Ahashima effect to special summon 2. It's just got a bigger body, so 2700 attack. It doesn't really do the back row destruction or anything of that level, but I think the recursion, the attack on it, just better than Ahashima because of that. A tier, I'm happy. Turtle, love the turtle. It negates something that would target a Bujin... where do we put this? We'll put it behind the Quillen. It negates something that would target a Bujin monster, so if it... what would be like a Raigeki break, just because I can't think of anything else at the moment, where they discard one and then target one of your monsters to destroy it. You can banish the turtle to negate that targeting effect. So, good card. I like it, and it's an old school one. That'll do it. That's my Bujin tier list. There's only 2 S tier cards. I thought I would probably decide that there were more, but I suppose I tried to be honest with myself and with all of you. Thanks for hanging out with me in this one. If you like this kind of content, subscribe, like the video, comment down below. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Where would you move certain other things? Tell me I'm stupid, or tell me I'm the smartest guy you've ever listened to. I don't care which one it is. I'm just happy to hear from you. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Have a good week. Bye.